Okay, so Parshat Behar. Um, I have three items here to share. The first is from number one on the sheet is an Netziv of Naphtali Tzvi Yehuda Berlin. We've mentioned many times in the past. Wrote a pirush on the Chumash. Actually, the Emek Davar is his pirush, his Chumash. It represented a weekly shir that he gave in the Volozhin Yeshiva every Friday. This is the collection of Hayim McDover, and it was actually published posthumously. I might have told you that a great grandson of the Netziv is the Rosh Yeshiva of the Volozhin Yeshiva in Yerushalayim, and he published some years ago. I think it's a good 20 years. He published a new Emek where he published the commentary of the Netziv, but he added comments since the Netziv published it when he was alive on his Chumash. There were all kinds of additional comments, and he published the Emek Davar with the additions that the Netziv put in afterwards. The only problem is, and I told him this one when he visited Toronto once, that it's tremendous what he did, but unless you're a Bucky in the Netziv, you don't know what's new. And really I think in the world of scholarship, right? In the world of scholarship, when you add comments, you mark it. There should be a notation that this is a new comment. But in any case, he's a wonderful Talmud Chacham, and he gave us the Netziv. That's the one that I have. And you can go into his forum shop and you can discover it yourselves. So to get to the Netziv, I want to start with, go to number 2 on the sheet. We just have a few psukim as an introduction to the Netziv. Number 2 is from Parshat Bereshit, when Adam was created. So the pasuk says, "Vayitzar Hashem Elokim es Adam." God created man, afar min hadama. He created him from the dust of the earth. Vayipach ba'apav nishmat chayim. We're going to focus on the word chayim tonight. And he blew into his nostrils nishmat chayim. He gave him an neshama. Vayhi adam lenefesh chaya. And he became a living person. He became a living person, the ability to think. And the uniqueness of the human species from the animals is that the ability to talk, nefesh chaya, that we could articulate what we're thinking. But what the question we're asking on this pasuk is, why is chayim mentioned twice? Right? He blew into his nostrils nefesh chayim, and then vayi adam nefesh chaya. Right? You didn't have to repeat it necessarily, right? Now go back up to number 1. It's from our parsha. And we have numerous mitzvahs here, but here we're talking about lending money, supporting poor people, central motif in the parsha. V'chiamuch achicha, when your brother is down financially, umate yado imach, and his assets are dwindling. He's not yet declared bankruptcy, but his assets are dwindling. Mate yado imach, with you. You have to help him. You have to help him out. Pasuk continues, ger v'toshav, also a ger v'toshav. Now, a ger toshav is a non-Jew who has accepted to live in the Jewish community and has accepted upon himself certain moral Jewish ideas. Right? He will not worship idols. Right? Doesn't necessarily keep kosher, but he accepts upon himself not to be engaged in avodah zarah. V'chayimach, and he will live with you. Right. So again, you have in this pasuk v'chayimach, and he should live with you. Next pasuk, al tikach mi'ito neshech v'tarbit. You cannot take from a Jew interest. V'yareta me'elokecha, have fear of Hashem. V'chei achicha imach. He should dwell with you. So you have here, Chai, again, and Chai. You have a double mention in terms of dealing with the poor, Jew and non-Jew alike, different ideas. A Jew you can you lend money, but not on interest, and a non-Jew you have to help also, try to save them financially. But chai, you have two chaims. You have two chaims in the creation of man. You have two chaims in the exercise of tzedakah, of caring for someone else. Okay, now let's go down to the Netziv at number 5. And here is his comment, and there'll be a climax in the last paragraph, but let's get there. He goes to the psukim here. When your brother is poor, and he's starting to sink financially, his assets are dwindling. Ger v'toshav, and also a ger v'toshav. Hamikra mefaresh shnei ofanei makot. The pasuk is talking about two different kinds of challenges, financial challenges, right? Im mateyado, if he's sinking, his money is running out. Hainu sheyesh lo nechasim. Now, he has something, he has property, he has assets. V'achuzat sadeh be'eretz Yisrael, and he's a landowner in Eretz Yisrael. Ela bad she'ein kocho yafel Yisrael, but for whatever reason, he's not able to sow his fields. He's lacking workers. He's lacking instruments. Whatever. His land was no good, right? V'yado. No, when the Torah says yado, his hand, kol pam, mashmu kocho, it means his ability, right? So mate yado, his ability was now decreased, and he quotes a pasuk va'od tanai imach. Also, it says imach. He's with you. Talking about a Jew. You know him. He's someone in your community. As ichzakta, then you have to help him, right? You know, the Gemara has a whole pecking order in tzedakah. You know, aniyei ircha kodem. People from your own town or your own city who are in need come before people from another town. Right? People are collecting for people who need money, right? Incidentally, when it comes to this halacha, Yerushalayim is considered our hometown also. So needs in Yerushalayim have an equal playing field with the city where we happen to reside at the moment. Okay? That's why it says your hand, right? It's you got to lift him up. V'dafke imach, and dafka, he's with you, right? It's a Jew. Shata yodeyeshu neman l'shalem. You know this guy is honest, and he's going to pay you back. Lachar sheyira zera tfua b'achuzato. Once you put him on his feet again, then he's going to be. You know that he's good for his money, and he will pay you back, right? Ger v'toshav, im yamuch ish she'ein tikva sheyishalem. You know, there's no guarantee that this non-Jewish fellow is going to pay you back, right? Kimo ger v'toshav, right? He's here today, gone tomorrow, right? She'ein lo achuzah ba'aretz. First of all, because primarily he cannot own land in Eretz Yisrael, so he has very little principle with which to pay you back, right? And his attachment, his ties to the community are not as strong as our Jewish brethren. That's why we emphasize the word achicha with the Jew, which is also mentioned twice, and we'll get to that eventually. Just like your brother, you have to help the ger toshav chayimach to live also. Azhara lahachioto v'lo yamut. Right? You have to make sure he doesn't die. He has to live, right? We're talking about Eretz Yisrael. Shechiyut haragil hayamin hakarka. Of course, we're talking about Eretz Yisrael because it was an agrarian society. Everyone was involved in real estate, right? And everybody had a piece of property in Eretz Yisrael. Davar muvan. And it's understood, but however, he says, this is not a mitzvah that only applies in Eretz Yisrael. the Torah is focusing on agriculture because that's where we're at right now when we were in Eretz Yisrael in the time of the Torah. But it's not a mitzvah tluya ba'aretz. This applies everywhere and anywhere, right? V'odin b'chutz la'aretz, outside of Eretz Yisrael. Shechiyut adam tluya b'umnot o b'mischar. When a person's livelihood, his life is dependent upon a profession or business. Umnot u'mischar, right? And it really doesn't make a difference whether he's a Jew or a non-Jew. You have to help both of them. Right? Okay. Now, skip to the last paragraph. Now he's gonna hit pay dirt. Why Chai is mentioned twice? Why Chaim is mentioned twice? V'chai achicha, your brother should live. Mashmaot Chai mitparesh al shnei ofanim. There's two kinds of life. When the Torah speaks about Chaim, it's talking about two different things. It gives a couple of quotes. Pam mashmu Chai v'lo meit. He has to be alive and not dead. You have to give him his basic needs, his necessities, so he can live, right? Help him with his health insurance, whatever. He has to live, not die. Upam mashmu Chai v'lo atsev. To be alive and not sad. How you live your life. Right? That's a totally different ballgame, right? So for the non-Jew, you certainly have to make sure that you can't leave him destitute. You have to help him. You have to help him get on his feet. But a Jew, you have an additional obligation, chai v'lo atsev, to move him in the right direction spiritually with the Torah. V'chein kan, here too, harishon chai imach, he should dwell with you, the one who lives with you. Koi al v'chiyamucha achicha, we're talking about your brother. Talking about a Jew. Ger toshav v'chayimach hainu shelo yamut l'shachet. He shouldn't die. You have to save him. V'kan mashmo chay achicha imach. Chay achicha imach is spiritually that he should be alive and not sad. That his life should have meaning, right? Shetechazik biyado lahalvat lo b'li nesha. You have to lend him money without taking interest. Right? Kadesh so he will be equal to you. V'lo yochal es psaro ka'asher yeh muchrach l'shalem nesha. And if he has to pay interest, he's gonna fall apart. Ubezeh dafka achicha, but that's achicha. Mashen came toshav roshoy l'kabel mimenu nesha. You're allowed to take interest from a non-Jew. Now, this we've talked about in past years. I think this has always been a thorny issue for the Jewish people throughout Jewish history. It got us into a lot of trouble, right? We were thrown out of countries because we charged interest to non-Jews and didn't charge interest to Jews. In fact, very few professions were given over, were allowed for Jews in the Middle Ages, and money lending, that's where the Rothschilds came from. Banking became one of the prime businesses of the Jewish people. So how is it that you can only lend money on interest to a non-Jew? You're not allowed to lend money to a Jew. In fact, it says twice, achicha. In these psukim, your brother is mentioned twice to emphasize. So why is that? Why not? If I had a business, if I had a rental car business, and you come in and I rent you a car, but I take a profit. Whatever business I have, I take a profit. Why not with money? Why can I not take interest from a Jew with money and I can do it with a non-Jew? And this really is a kind of response that was actually given to Oliver Cromwell when there was an argument to bring the Jews back into England, and he allowed them to come in because he was satisfied with this approach, this response. And it's very simple. Money is a whole different ballgame. If your mother approaches you or your brother approaches you and says, listen, I need $10,000, right? Would you charge them interest? Family. They need something, you give them, right? It's not that you're any less than my family because you're not Jewish, but you're not my family. Don't you treat your family differently than non-family? You help everybody, right? You help everybody. Ger v'toshav. These psukim tell us you help the Jew and you help the non-Jew. The ger v'toshav, particularly the ethical Jew or non-Jew who keeps the 7 mitzvahs of Noah, right? But it's not the same. You understand that. Family is treated differently. That's what it is. We are a family. I can't take interest. When it comes to money, I don't take interest from family, but I can take interest from you, just like I can take a profit when I rent you a car, right? That's really the approach here. Now, this idea, by the way, that chai is not just about living, right? There are many aspects to life. In fact, when Rosh Hashanah comes along and the Aseret Yemei Tshuva, we add to the Shemona Esrei in the first bracha, right? Zachrenu l'chayim, melech chafetz b'chayim, v'chasvenu b'sefer ha'chayim, l'mancha elokim chayim. We have every single predicate there for chayim, right? Life is multidimensional, right? But chiyus is not just living, is not just bringing someone into life, but it's giving them a purpose in life, right? It's interesting that a nurse in modern Hebrew, a nurse is called achot. It's interesting. A nurse is called achot. That's what a nurse is, right? Achot. Where did that come from? She's a sister, right? Now, I don't know if it came from the non-Jewish world, the Catholic world, where all the nuns were nurses. I don't know, but I think not. I think the cleverness of Lashon Kodesh, even in modern Hebrew, is that achot, a nurse, is not just a functionary. She cares about you. She's right. But in the Torah, what's the word for a nurse? A chaya. Chaya is the name of a nurse in the Lashon of Torah, right? Because she gives life. Now, I would add something else. How do you say birthday in Hebrew? Right? What do you say? Yom Huledet, right? Yom Huledet Sameach, right? What does Yom Huledet mean? What it's not. You should really say Yom Haledah, my birthday, the day I was born, Yom Haledah. But we say Yom Huledet. What's Huledet? It's a causative. It's Yom Huledet. It's the day of those people who brought you into life. The day that that people brought me into life. Yom Huledet. That's my celebration. That somebody cares about me, brought me into life physically, and is raising me, giving me all my basic needs. That's a birthday. That's the Hebrew translation of a birthday. It's not a birthday, Yom Haledah. It's Yom Huledet, the day that I was brought in to life. Okay. And finally, just if you look at number 3, the pasuk I had in number 3 is a pasuk in Vet Hanan. We're familiar with Vatem Hadvekim B'Shem Alokechem. We cling to the Ribono Shalom. We're davek to the Ribono Shalom. We Chayim Kulchem Hayom. He gives us complete life. The duality that we spoke that Nasiv has spoken about. Okay, let's go to the next piece. This is from Rav Schwab, and he points out, starts with something in our parsha, which is actually we're continuing the same theme, but he's going to bring something else out. Same psukim, right? At kaspecha lo titein lo beneshech u'tamarbit. You're not allowed to give a loan to money to a Jew with interest. Lo titein, right? Ani Hashem Elokechem. Why is that? Ani Hashem Elokechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim. Because I am God who took you out of Egypt. Now, what's the cause and effect here? What's the equation here? Don't give money to a Jew on interest because I took you out of Mitzrayim. Let's see what he says. Uberashi is going to bring 3 examples, 3 mitzvahs in the Torah where you have the reason being Yetziat Mitzrayim, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu took us out of Mitzrayim. Let's see what he develops. Uberashi, Mekoro B'Bava Metzia Samach Aleph, it's actually, those of you who are learning Daf Yomi, we had this Gemara a little over a week ago, okay? Asher hotzeiti, I took you out of Mitzrayim. V'hivchanti bein bechor, I took you out of Egypt. What did I do? Hivchanti bein bechor l'she'eno bechor. Remember how I took you out of Egypt? I was able to distinguish between who was really a firstborn, right, and who was not a firstborn. The firstborns of the Egyptians were killed, right? So I was able to be mavchin, to distinguish between a firstborn and a firstborn, right? Or those who were firstborn and those who were not firstborn, right? Afani Odeya, so I know everything. Afani Odeya v'nifra min hamalva mod liYisrael baribis. I know someone who's lending money to a Jew with interest. Va'omer shall nachrihem, right? I thought, the money belongs to a non-Jew. I'm just doing him a favor, right? So that's, of course, Kodesh Baruch Hu can distinguish between someone who's lending with interest, someone who's not lending with interest, right? Hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim. I took you out of Egypt, right? And I distinguish between you, the Jewish people, and the Mitzrayim, right? I made that distinction, right? You can't fool me, right? Emes is what we're looking for. We're looking for truth. Dichsiv b'sof Parshat Tzitzis, number 2. At the end of part of the mitzvah of Tzitzis. Anihu, shehivchanti b'Mitzrayim ben tipa shel bechor l'she'eno shel bechor. I am the God who can tell the difference in who is a bechor and not a bechor. Anihu atid lahavchin v'lipor min hatola kala ilan bebigdo. It was a phony kind of tchelet, right? A phony kind of the blue tzitzis, the tchelet tzitzis called kala ilan. And people were wearing it, right? It was a phony, right? It was an imitation, right? So people were wearing this knockoff brand of tchelet called Kala Ilan. And the Baruch says, I know who's wearing.
I think it's indigo in English.
Thank you, indigo. And I am the one who knows the difference between indigo and tchelet. Thank you, Shira. Ma'oznei tzedek. Now that's number 2. And why? Because I took you out of Mitzrayim again, right? The third mitzvah, ma'oznei tzedek, which we just had in the Torah, having just measures. Ani Hashem Elokeichem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim. You have to have just measures. Your weights have to be honest, because I am the God who took you out of Egypt, right? Etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim. Anihu. I'm the one. I'm the God. Shehivchanti ben tipa shel bechor. Again, the tipa she'eno shel bechor. I distinguish between who's a firstborn and who's not a firstborn. V'ani neman li'por misha tomen mishkalotav b'melach lahonot et habriot. I'm the guy. I'm the one who can tell if somebody is putting some salt on his weights to make it a little heavier. I often tell the story. My first position was in Savannah, Georgia. And there was a kosher butcher there, and the kosher butcher there, and he sold his business, and he moved to Atlanta, and he sold his business to a very special family. It was a family that actually, Bali Chua, they became frum in the community, and they bought the business, and I get a call like when he moved in, took over the business, he took out the things that were still in the freezer. The meat that was marked, he put them on the scale. He wanted to repackage them with the new label, and he discovered that every single piece of meat that was in the freezer had a higher weight of kilo or pounds than it was, and he was overcharging. I mean, it broke my heart. And but this was a kosher butcher, right? Which is why you have to have supervision, by the way, right? Now, you can't supervise the weights and measures, but at least that the kashrus should be okay. But this is you're dealing with. This was a religious fellow, you're right, okay? So there's a when it comes to money, Hakesef Yanas, I call the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara is very, very strong. And Rashi mentioned it, that I know you're lending with interest, but you're claiming that you're representing it for a non-Jew, right? Umash midrashot, no. So he has 3 mitzvahs. Lending money, not on interest. Wearing tzitzis that are real, not a knockoff brand of indigo. And your just weights, right? Have to be emes, right? Truth. Umash midrashot. Now, from these drushes, shahavchana ben habechor she'enu bechor, distinguishing, knowing who's a real firstborn, who's not a real firstborn, who tokfo shel nes makat bechorot. This is behind the essence of the miracle of the killing of the firstborn. V'ikro shel yetzias Mitzrayim, and it was the final blow, the makat bepatish, the icing on the cake of the exodus from Egypt. There's makat bechorot. When we left, that's how we left. That was the final blow of the hammer that the Rebbeinu Shalom gave the Egyptians was makat bechorot, right? Ad she'ani Hashem Elokeichem, I am your God. Asher hotzei tichi etchem eretz Mitzrayim, I took you out of Mitzrayim. Mikivan bi'ikro l'zeh ha'inyan. That's what it's referring to. Right. Now, so what is the What does it mean? So Rav Schwab wants to say, "V'havanat advarim." I want to suggest, Nirisha Hamalva beribis. If someone lends money on an interest, v'omer shelakum muhem, but I'm just an agent for a non-Jew. He's lying. V'hatomein mishkelotav b'melech, and someone who he fixes his weights, his scale. Eina mela dugmaot shel dofi hasholetet be'alma de shikra. These are examples of sheker. The world is a world of sheker, the Chazal say, alma de shikra. We live in a world of sheker, right? And our purpose is to bring emes back into the world. That's what Torah represents, right? I mean, if you don't believe me that the world is a world of sheker, just look at what we're living through this last year, right? And just today, right? The Hague is now issued arrest warrants for Sinwar, Yimach Shemo, and Benjamin Netanyahu, right? A Democrat. I mean, it's a Marx Brothers movie. If you know what I'm referring to, it's insane, right? It's an Olam HaSheker, right? There's the story of what that we know is the truth, and then there's the alternate story of what's happening in this world that we live in. You can go crazy, right? Skula Yetziat Mitzrayim v'Kiyum Haftacha al Havot. The taking us out of Egypt from a world of complete sheker. Mitzrayim was sheker. V'kiyum haftacha al avot. Now the fulfillment of the promise to Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Bitul hasheker, the getting rid of sheker, falsehood. V'hitgalut ha'emet, and the revelation. Yetziat Mitzrayim is the revelation of truth. Now we're going to create a people of OUisrael, and we're going to bring truth to the world. Right? Hamuchlat b'shat makat bechorot. That's I demonstrated it to you that I did makat bechorot. God says, with an element of sheker versus truth. Right? Kedei shehavchana ben tipa shel bechor letipa she'enu bechor kemo she'amar hakatuv u'shmi Hashem lo nadati lem. Okay, next final paragraph. Asher al kain. Therefore, tiknu l'sayim beParshat tzitzit. Therefore, with tzitzis. Milad emes, these three mitzvahs that represent emes, right? And that's why he says it's instructive to know that in a few, we're all going to daven Marav tonight. Al pi hamikra and Yirmiyah, we say Hashem Elokeichem emet. The pasuk ends Ani Hashem Elokeichem, but we always add to Hashem Hashem Elokim emet. Ki ikar Yetziat Mitzrayim, the essence of Yetziat Mitzrayim haya bezeh. Shehu haya hitgalut ha'emet la'amito shelani hu v'lo acher. It was the revelation that God is emes, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is emes, as opposed to all other represented sources of power, political power, and theological power in the world. The Rebbeinu Shalom revealed that He is Elokei emes. Ulechein omrim ani Hashem Elokeichem asher hotzeisi eschem eretz Mitzrayim ani Hashem Elokeichem emes. That's how we say it. Now, the problem is, this Rav Schwab is very nice, but I saw that the Maral asked a question that you can take every mitzvah in the Torah really is about emes, right? So why dafka these three mitzvahs? What's unique about why dafka these three mitzvahs? So the Maral gives an answer which I have to tell you. I looked at it about a half hour ago, and I'm having trouble discovering what he wants to say, and he says it on his Pirush in the Gemara, but he refers us to one of his forum where he goes into detail, and I didn't see it. So I'm having trouble understanding what the Maral is saying. But I have my own suggestion, a very simple suggestion, that these three mitzvahs represent the entire gamut of our relationship to the world, right? Tzitzis is about my clothing. It's about how that I have to be true to myself, right? I have to be true to myself, right? That's what tzitzis is all about, right? It's a reminder the number of knots and strings is 613 mitzvahs, but I have to be true to myself. And it extends from my beggar in the corner to take it into the world. It's about my emes, my personal emes, right? Chalva, lending to a Jew without interest, is my relationship with OUisrael. My being a part, my national, not my this is my personal identity has to be emes. Lending is my national identity. My identity with Knesset Yisrael, with the Jewish people, has to be emes, right? And just measures business, weights and measures in business is how I relate to the rest of the world, Jew and non-Jew alike. That a Jew has to be a light unto the nations, right? We have to be emes to the world, right? The Chil Hashem, when a Jew does something untoward, and that you see it's a Jew. When I read in the newspaper something, this business guys in New York had this scam or something. Just yesterday, I saw something about it. Anyway, and I always look to see, the names. It gets me very nervous, right? So I think that's what the Torah is trying to say to us. That God, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, puts Yetzias Mitzrayim, Dafka, reminder, I'm doing this. You have to do these mitzvahs because I took you out of Mitzrayim. And the emes, I revealed my emes, because these three mitzvahs represent emes in three dimensions: personal dimension, true to myself, true to my relationship to OUisrael, and true to the world, as a Jew in the world. Okay, let's go to the last piece. And I apologize, Meirosh, because this is really a kind of a Yom Kippur idea, but I couldn't resist. It's really in the Parsha, and the Parsha deals with Yovel, and Rav Hutner here fleshes out something via the Maral, a beautiful lesson about the uniqueness of tshuva on Yom Kippur, rather than tshuva we do every day. Every day we say, 3 times a day, we say slach lanu, right? Avinu, machal lanu, right? We do tshuva. But the tshuva on Yom Kippur, of course, is a magical presence to the tshuva on Yom Kippur, what it can accomplish for us. But that's what he wants to talk about, and it comes from the shofar of Yom Kippur, from the shofar of Yovel. We talk about in the Parsha the mitzvah of Yovel, right? I didn't put the pasuk on the sheet, but it says Avarta shofar truat b'chodesh ha'asiri, in the 10th month, right? On the 10th day of the 10th month, right? Yom Kippur, we sound the shofar of Yovel. What's Yovel? Jubilee, just a review for all of us, that in the Jubilee year, if ancestral property was sold, it returns to its owner. A slave is now a free person. Money, no one owes money, right? It's all forgiven. Money goes back to the original person. That's the end of it, right? And on Yom Kippur, that's the Yovel, the Jubilee. It's a drawers of a sense of freedom. I have a certain sense of freedom on Yovel, but all of this he's going to say really impacts on Yom Kippur. So let's go through it. We won't be able. I'll do the whole thing inside. I'll do the best I can. Midas hatshuva amru chacham. What is tshuva? Gedola tshuva shemikarevet et hagula. Tshuva is so great that it brings about geula. It brings the end of days. It brings Mashiach. If every Jew, there's a promise, by the way, that every Jew is going to do tshuva. The Rambam brings it as a halacha. So every Jew is going to do tshuva. But the tshuva that we do, the Jewish people do, will bring redemption. It'll bring the final redemption, right? Uvo, and we know that because we say it every day. Uvo l'tzion goel. God will bring to Tzion a redeemer. U'l'shavei pesha b'Yaakov, to those who do tshuva. Geula b'smichut l'shevi pesha, right? So what is that? A prize? Is that a prize? Well, how does that work exactly? Because all that Maral, and the Maral says, Hainu de Matzinu b'Yom Kippur, Mishnat HaYovel, the Yom Kippur of the Jubilee year, the 50th year, right? We count 7 times 7. Shemitah's in the 50th year is also a day that there's rest from the agriculture and so on, right? It's a whole year, special year. It's a back-to-back Shemitah and Yovel in the 50th year. Uzman Geula, it's a time of redemption. Titnu la'aretz, to the land. Geula tiyeh, it's a redemption. Zman shavadim mishtacharim, slaves are freed. V'shavim labateim, they go home. Shavu sadot, v'nachalot, fields, real estate, property. Chozrot leba'aleim, goes back to their original owner. Bizman shehakol shavim lematzavam rishon, we all go back to where we started from. That's what Yovel is all about. We go back to where we started from. A Jewish slave becomes a Jewish free man now. My land comes back to me. Yom Kippur, who's man hatshuva, bo mitkayemet hamitzvah shel geula tiyeh lechem. So this is the kind of thing that he wants to flesh out here. The uniqueness of the tshuva on Yom Kippur relates to this this idea of what happened, because it all begins on Yovel. That's when we blow the shofar. We blow the shofar at the end of Yom Kippur because the shofar was blown on the Yom Kippur, which was Yovel, right? In other words, at Rosh Hashanah, it's over, right? The Yovel begins, but the Jew is not freed until he sits. The Rambam has a beautiful language. The Gemara actually that the slave sits with and put a crown on his head that he feels he's a free person, but he officially goes out on Yom Kippur. So what is there's a steady, graduated level which climaxes on Yom Kippur. There's something unique about Yom Kippur. Okay, Yom Kippur v'Yom Kippur shall kol shnas hayovel mosar et oro Yom Kippur shall yovel. Every Yom Kippur is a mirror image of the Yom Kippur of the Jubilee year. V'chasach hakol shall haorot halalu molidhu et hashal hevet hakodesh shall kol mini hakadusha shall Yom Kippur shall shnat hayovel. We're going to bring out something from the Yom Kippur of Yovel. Imanu roim et hatziruf shall tshuva legeula mafia b'mali chidro b'yom. We're going to see it. Okay, I have to skip. What's the difference, right? What's going on? Amnam. This is Mark Gimel. Tshuvato shall shela zu. And I'm going to ask, how is tshuva on Yom Kippur different? I can do tshuva on Yom Kippur. I do tshuva any day of the year. What's the uniqueness of my tshuva on Yom Kippur? And it's derived from the power of that Yovel Yom Kippur. In other words, the shofar that we blow on Yom Kippur of Yovel, right, is not a lesson in Yovel. It's a lesson in Yom Kippur. It's the power of Yom Kippur. Meaning what? Let's see. Listen. I'm going to quote something from the Gra. He says, Hine, Hamikra Omer al David Hamelech, David Melech Yisrael is Shehu HaGever Hukam Ol. David Hukam Ol. He elevated the idea of tshuva. He was Hukam Ol, right? Pirushu Chachomim Bezeshu Hekim Olah Shel Tshuva. The elevation of tshuva, the epitome, the pinnacle of tshuva, right? We know David Hamelech was about tshuva, right? Because of Agra, the Ola Shel Tshuva bekan Chachavna Hi Biloshin Aliyah, from the word Aliyah, elevation, right? Right? Ola Shel Tshuva, right? Hukam Ol, the word Ol. It doesn't mean the yoke of tshuva, the Ol, the Aliyah, the highest pinnacle of tshuva. How so? David Hikim Aliyato Shel Tshuva. Let me explain. He wasn't the first person to do tshuva in the Torah. Adam Arishon, Lachar Shechata, by the first sin. Adam Rishon did tshuva. Kayim Yasma Seder Norah shall 130 Kuf Lamed Shana b'tshuva. Did tshuva at the 130 years he did tshuva. Umikol Makom Lo Hugzar LeGan Eden. He didn't get back to Gan Eden. The tshuva was accepted, but he didn't get back to where he started from. Ubnei Yisrael Lachar Tshuvatam Al Chet HaEgel, when the Jewish people did tshuva by the sin of the golden calf, the Egel. Lo kiblu shuv et haluchot harishonot. We didn't get the broken tablets. It was gone. The luchot rishonot, the first luchot, were gone. Shol HaMelech did tshuva. Gam acharei amra chatasi nikra mimenu hamalchus. Right? He did tshuva, and he was forgiven, but he no longer became king. Shaul was no longer king. He didn't get back to his kingship. Lilo chazor alavot, never became king again. Ve'ilu David la'achar tshuvato, after his tshuva, hazra elav hamalchus. The kingship was returned to David Melech Yisrael, kamo shehayta mikodem, the same way it was before. V'hainu ma shehikim ola shel tshuva. What does it mean that he elevated tshuva? Dahainu shehikim aliyato shel tshuva koma rishon b'li shum horadet. He brought it back. He brought himself back to the very beginning. This is the point here. Final paragraph. Unechoni manu achshav lachzor l'divrei. Let's go back to the moral. Shahora lanu, he pointed out to us, sheyesh yichud b'slichus Yom Kippur. There's something unique about the tshuva of Yom Kippur. L'gabi haslichus tshuva poelas b'shar Yom HaShana. From this tshuva we do every day of the year. V'yichud zehu mipnei shetshuva Yom Kippur. The tshuva Yom Kippur hu b'derech gula. It's redemptive. It's redemption. Kidechazinim b'Yom Kippur shal yovel. It's going back to the shofar blast on Yom Kippur of Yovel when we were given the mitzvah of Yovel of the Jubilee. What was the whole thing on the Jubilee? Everything came back, was restored to its original place. V'amdu b'tzimaon, v'amadnu b'tzimaon, leharat ha'hevdel ben. He's being very poetic. V'amadnu b'tzimaon, lehavarat ha'hevdel ben hatochen shel shnei sugei tshuva halalu. So with the thirst for this, I'm gonna bring it out. He says in the next line, Amnam la'achar sheniklat banu shefa ha'or shel maimer. Now that I'm pulling this out for you, atzimaon ne'apach l'revaya. Right? We're thirsty to understand what am I talking about here? Right? I'm going to quench your thirst now. What's unique about the tshuva of Yom Kippur is that it was built in. It's built upon the tshuva of Yovel, the first Yom Kippur, Yovel. Ki halo kol ha'hevdel hazeh. The difference is novahu mi Yom Kippur shel Yovel. What was Yovel all about? Mikivan she'ikar hablita b'inyaну shel Yom Kippur the Yovel. What's the headline of Yom Kippur on Yovel? Hu hachzara v'hashiva l'makom harishon, is the ability to return back to the starting point and start all over again. A clean slate, wiped out. A clean slate, all again. Asher mimenu yotzu, where we came from. Avadim niftarim leveitavateihem. A Jewish servant who sold himself because he was destitute. He goes back home and he becomes just like another Jew, starting all over again. Tzadot v'nachalot chozrot leba'aleihem. All possessions and agriculture and fields and farm go back to their original owner. V'zeu ha'geula anitenet lar. This is the geula. This is the redemption that was given to Eretz Yisrael. Harei shavada haslicha v'hakapora shel Yom Kippur. Zeh bod hein al derech hashiva v'achzara l'makom rishon. So this is the power of tshuva on Yom Kippur. I warned you, and I apologize. This is the Yom Kippur vote, but it's something to put away for Yom Kippur, right? The uniqueness of the power of tshuva, it's not just forgiveness, it's redemptive. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings us back to the beginning, a completely clean slate on Yom Kippur, right? So it's from PARSHA, but it's a beautiful idea for Yom Kippur. Okay, thank you all for your patience. This week, Wednesday's halacha shiur, if anyone's interested, is going to be about hostage negotiations and pidyon shvuyim, releasing captives. Okay, thank you all. Good to be back, to see you all in good health, and we should stay that way. There should be shalom al Yisrael, and the captives should be freed, the chayalim should come home, and the rishoyim should get their just due.